last time we were talking, we started to talk about what it felt like after they did what they did to you in the New York Clubhouse.
Well, I felt betrayed, for sure. Simply because, man, I tried to be the best Hells Angel you could be. You know, I mean, I was gone for a month as it was, doing Hells Angels business, and, you know, support for our charter, support merchandise and Sturgis for our charter. You know, then the opportunity to go for the calendar shoot was an honor thing. You know, Pee-wee was, he's like, R.I.P B.A, he hyped me up about how Bond would do the photo thing, and so it was a different experience for me, and it was cool. Plus the anniversary party was going on, and I knew Pee-wee was going to be there as well, and Brad. You know, so I was looking forward to, I've been with him guys the whole time in Sturgis. Here I am going to 3 or 4 days again, and I'll be with them again, you know what I mean? So it's kind of like, that's the thing that I would say miss, was always looking forward to the events of being with those guys, having the best time that you could have, you know?
Right.
I mean, Hells Angels have fun. No doubt about it. You know?
So in Michigan, it just doesn't seem to be working out that well.
Well, I think there's a black flag, already. I mean, the way it went down the first time, and then the second time, Pete, me and him had contacts, and we talked a lot, and I didn't know how to feel about that. You know what I mean? It was kind of like I was kind of wanting to keep my distance, but yet part of me was like, man, hey, why am I now being reached out for? What's the purpose of reaching out to me when I'm in bad? But yet I wanted to know maybe if that could be revealed, or what he knew by being in Hells Angels for 10 years, I think he told me. And it took him about 2 years to get the votes, because, there's a process that goes through to bring the charter back. You got to go to OMs, and you got to vote on it, and it's got to be passed, and it just doesn't, you just don't say, we're going to open a charter and bang, there it goes.
Right.
There's a process that goes through that, and you have to have the votes, by the other charters, to make that happen. So he went through an extensive length of time, trying to reestablish Michigan again. And, the media and stuff, there was some couple write-ups in Michigan Hells Angels the first time, it's kind of like, that's not true. It's not the first time, but maybe those people weren't involved at the time when the first ones were here, and they didn't know anything about it, and they didn't research their business.
Right. So
they just insinuated that Hells Angels were in Michigan for the first time, which that wasn't the case, know. But after talking to him, there was some things that were kind of cool, like for our 1-year anniversary, there's a granite shop here in town that do headstones for cemeteries, and he's a friend of mine, and I went to him and I'm like, hey, I got this idea to do this huge black granite like slab with a big death head. It says Michigan Nomad's 1-year anniversary. Could you do like not a headstone, but on a flat piece of black granite? And he's like, oh yeah, that'd be awesome. So we made that happen, and I donated that. I gave it to the charter as a gift. And I didn't know where that went, and that kind of bothered me because it was an expensive piece.
Yeah.
And I come to find out that Chicago had it, and then, Pete ended up with it, which was cool to know that it still existed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So the people that you had a regular conversation with on a normal basis, the part of your life, when you're in a club and you're being a Hells Angel, you still have your family and you still have your friends outside the club, but your club family is like, that's every day.
Yeah.
And you talk to guys daily, and then all of a sudden that option isn't, available for you anymore.
So in the process of them building this new charter, or reestablishing basically the charter that you guys had built, they've come to you. They have. He
did, but the president, I made a comment on a post. It was on social media, and it got sent to me, and I don't know who sent it to me. and my name was tagged in the post about Michigan Nomads, and the pictures of that were on they were on Google Images of my bike. There was quite a few pictures of my motorcycle on the search, and that was a comment that was made. I believe I believe that's B.A. from Muskegon's motorcycle. I could be wrong, but I remember seeing it in Sturgis, and I seen it at the Sandy Corley Memorial Run. So whoever that was obviously must have been local, because the Sandy Corley thing was something that was here in town, but he didn't say who it was. And then there was some comments made from outside of this area, so I just clarified, part of the conversation that people, some of the comments are true, some of the comments are false. It was my motorcycle. I am an ex-member of the Hells Angels in Michigan, and that's what kind of opened the door, for that. And then there was another thing that happened. There was an FXR page that's on Facebook, and it's strictly FXRs, and I had posted a picture of my motorcycle on that site, and the feedback started coming about, hey, whose bike is that? Oh, he's in bad, get that off there, or somebody get that picture off there, the guy's in bad standings, blah, blah, blah. And actually, Abraham, my son, has one that had posted that picture, show your badass ride or something like that.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like, these guys were making a big deal out of a picture, and they took it down.
And it wasn't on a Hells Angels page? It was just on...
It wasn't on the Hells Angels page, and it didn't say Hells Angels. It was just a picture of the bike. It didn't say Hells Angels on it at all. Of course, it had death heads and stuff on it, but you could tell. But still, he didn't know.
Right.
And it wasn't in violation of that particular website. It was in violation of nothing. I didn't see there was a problem with it at all. But, of course, somebody had, a stiff one about it. So I just told him, I said, hey, just leave the pictures off. Well, then, we go back it up a little bit. This guy contacted me, and he's like, hey, are you in Michigan? And I go, yeah. And he goes, I don't know if you remember me or not, but I bought your bike. This is the guy that bought your bike. And I sold it. I didn't keep it. I waited. I had it for, about a year after I was out of the club. And my painter, who's a really, really good friend of mine, he's painted all my bikes. The Wiz, he said, hey, B.A., we can fix, this, because we ground, they ground the death heads off with a grinder, messed the paint up. And he's like, we can patch over that with some skulls, and you'll never know. So I took it to him. He made it look good, and then I sold the bike on eBay. And a guy from, I believe it was Nebraska, if I remember correctly, came here and paid for it. And he's seen the bike, on that site, and was like, oh, hey, that's mine. That was mine. That was my bike, So he reached out to me, so it was kind of cool. He said, I still got the paint job, still runs really good, and everybody likes it when they see it, A lot of people know it was a Hells Angels motorcycle, and,
Right.
Blah, blah, blah,
So the club actually grinded the death heads off? Or you
Well,
guys did?
they were gonna keep my bike. That was the word on the street, or that was the word coming back from New York. And I wasn't speaking much. I just wanted it to be done.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to let them keep my bike. That
Right.
that wasn't an option.
Right.
I was ready to say, hey, wait a minute, that you done got enough already. You got enough
you
of my
put
blood.
too much into it.
And the bike got brought to Holland, where the treasurer of the charter lived, and I went down there with a member that was my sponsor, who was a Hells Angel for a long time. He was one of the Hells Henchmen that patched Hells Angel. So he'd been in the club for a substantial amount of time, and was like, hey man, you're not keeping B.A.'s bike. I'm not allowing it to happen. So we went there, and there was orders given to where it was at, that it can't leave here with anything related to Hells Angels on it. So he had already took a grinder and started grinding stuff, and I'm like, hey man, you don't got to grind on it, spray paint and you're good and it's covered.
Right.
You know, black spray paint's all you gotta do. You don't gotta grind on the tank and get into the steel and cause me a whole bunch of extras, you know.
Right.
But like the D-rings on the rocker boxes, the rotors had Hells Angels cut in them. So we pulled the wheels off and pulled the rotors off and left the rotors there. We were there like an hour getting the bike kind of prepped to go.
Yeah.
And he wasn't, you know, he stood there the whole time like, you know, make sure you do everything correct. You know, it was kind of stupid, but we loaded it up and I brought it home and pushed it in the garage and sat there for close to a year. I didn't mess with it at all.
Now, were you doing all this when you were still swollen?
No, I waited a couple of days. I mean, my heads were swelled up for a couple of weeks. For a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
You know, I had black eyes probably a month, close to a month. But no, it was a few days after. I mean, probably I was home, you know, 4 or 5 days. And then I wanted to go get it. You know, I wanted my bike. You know, I'm like, hey, I want to go get my motorcycle. You know, my mom's like, I want you to go to the hospital. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to the hospital. You know, I never did go to the hospital. I didn't find out about the orbitables and stuff all being busted until I went to the hospital later that fall, and they did an x-ray because I was having headaches, a lot of them, and I couldn't breathe. You know, my sinuses was compromised, you know, because it was all broke. I still have problems to this day.
Yeah.
And he said, oh, wow, man. He goes, it looks like you've had some trauma. You had some trauma here, you know. And I said, oh, really? And he goes, yeah, you know, how long has this been going on for? And I told him, and he said, well, what happened? And I said, well, I got into a bar brawl, you know, and I hit with a beer mug. And, you know, I didn't want to give details and cause that, you know, I didn't backfire and
Right.
have detectives at my house, and you know how it goes, you know.
Right. So most of the guys that attacked you in the club are gone, right? JD's gone?
Well, you know, I guess I don't recall. I don't know exactly who was involved or how many. I know there was at least 3. When I came to my senses, or when I woke up from being knocked out, I don't know how long I was out for, if I was even knocked out at all. I don't really know. I just, when I was trying to focus, and I could see 3 or 4 different guys standing over me,
right.
You know, and I rolled over on my side, and I was like, man, I couldn't breathe, so I rolled back over on my other side, and that was when the girl was, you know, was crying and screaming. I could hear, you know, I remember that, and then, you know, from that point forward, it was just like, man, I want to get out of here. I want to go outside. That was my biggest thing, was just to get outside, you know, because at the old New York Clubhouse, you know, it was a 6-story building, but you went in the door and there's a long hall to get down to the actual clubhouse, which was a small area.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't a very big room.
Yeah,
know?
I've seen pictures.
Yeah, it was small. Sure. You know, it was nice though. I mean, there was so much history there. You know, it was really cool. It was an iconic place. You know.
Yeah.
All the history. I mean, just all the plaques and the pictures, and you could just spend days, you know, just looking at, you know. And the one thing about Hell's Angels, man, the way that the stuff they make, you know, 3-dimensional. You know, I mean, all stainless, and I mean, I don't know who makes this stuff, but it's really, really nice stuff. Right. You don't see that anywhere else. You know. Yeah, it's really nice stuff. So, you know, Hell's Angels, man, they go all out. I remember seeing Hell's Angels clothes and stuff. I'd be like, man, that shirt had a bunch of death heads in this. You know, it was like it was in the fabrics. Like, where do you get those?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where do you buy them from? Minnesota was good for having a lot of really cool stuff.
Yeah.
Yep, they had a lot of really nice stuff coming out of Minnesota. I bought a lot of stuff from them guys. But
so you're out of the club, and you have your tattoo shop.
Yep.
And you've had rival clubs kind of check in on you, make sure that you're not Hell's Angeling, basically.
Well, when I was in the club, I had a situation once, right after we had got established in Michigan. You know, in the Nomad charter, you know, we had guys kind of spread all around the state. I mean, there was one Hell's Angel in Michigan, or in Muskegon with me, that was actually from Kalamazoo. We met a childhood friend of mine, ended up getting married to her, so he moved from Kalamazoo to Muskegon, so that put 2 active members in town, which was nice, because then you had a road partner, you weren't by yourself.
Right.
And then we had prospects up north in Baldwin. We had 2 members in Holland. So you kind of paired up, guy. Tried to.
Yeah.
Everybody was paired up. You weren't, by yourself. But they stopped at my shop, and I can't remember his name, but I'll never forget his voice or what he looks like. When I was in the club that I quit to prospect for the Hells Angels, I went to a meeting in Grand Rapids. It was an MCOM. It was a motorcycle coalition, state of Michigan. They were trying to get an organized coalition of motorcycle clubs together to eliminate all of the rigmarole that was going on in the turmoil in the club. Like, that's my old club right there, the guy that's here. That's Joe. And I met an outlaw there. And he had an accent. He talked like he was from Boston, And I remember that voice. Well, then one day I'm at my shop, and I hear that voice. And I'm at the copying machine, and it stopped me dead in my tracks. And I'm like, wait a minute. I've heard that voice before. That's not somebody that I need here. And I came around the corner, and it was him. And he had, like, the toes of the socks were cut off. So he had these white socks pulled up over his forearms. He's, good-sized guy. And I said, hey, what brings you here? He's like, where's your butterflies at? I go, what? He goes, yeah, where's your butterflies? I'm like, you're not here for a butterfly tattoo. Come on, man. I know what you're here for, and you know why you're here. I said, there's nothing here for you. We need to kind of head this way, towards the door.
Right.
And he's like, oh, no. And I'm like, no, man. I said, I know who you are. I remember you, but you don't remember me. And then I told him where I met him at. And he's like, oh, I remember. And I'm like, there's nothing here for you. I said, you obviously know what's going on. Yeah. It's not a secret.
Yeah.
I had a huge, a front picture window was about 12 foot or 14 foot across the front of my building. And there's an old album that's got Sonny, and he's out in the desert, and he's got his feet up. He's on an old shovel head chopper. Well, I went to the graphics house here, and they blew that up to the size of that window, and it was a one-way screen. So I could see out, nobody could see in. So on the front of my building, right here on the 5-lane, was this huge, monstrous 16-foot picture of Sonny on the very front of my building. So you couldn't see in.
Yeah.
That kept you from looking in, but we could see out. The little round dots.
Right.
I wish I don't have pictures of that, which bums me out because everybody talked about that.
Well, yeah, I can imagine so, but I'm sure a lot of the wrong people were talking about something like that.
I didn't care. I mean, I really truly didn't care. I didn't feel invincible. I didn't feel like I'm a Hell's Angel. I felt, hey, I live in America, man. This is the United States. Who are you to tell me that I can't do what I want to do? It's in my own turf. I mean, I'm not bothering you. I'm not coming to your town or, we didn't even ever see those other guys here ever. They were never around. It's not like they were established here and we treaded on their territory.
Right.
You know what I mean? We were creating our own territory, and doing it with, with being cordial about it. I mean, we weren't pushing it down nobody's throat, and we weren't trying to make waves.
Right.
I mean, we had an agreement. We come across, we run into them. Hey, if they initiate a handshake, don't turn it down.
Right.
Don't turn a handshake down if it's offered to you by one of those guys.
Yeah.
When they came to a couple of swap meets that we were at, them were heated. Russ, God rest his soul, he's gone now, but he was one of my bestest friends. Me and him, we faced off with him in Lansing, right in the front of the venue, and it was me and him, and there was about 20 of them. We're like, hey, we got support gear here, yeah, we do. Mm-hmm. And no, we're not leaving,
Right.
And you know, don't know what the problem is, but, you know, let's try to squash the problem and let's not let it escalate from here, you know. So, I don't know. Things are different now than they were then.
Yes. So, have they talked about changing your status in the club?
Well, the president, the new president, who's no longer in the club after 10 years, you know, he got sick of the bullshit. And, you know, he called me one day and he's like, B.A., I'm out. I'm like, really? I'm bad? And he goes, no, not yet. I said, I'll give it a couple days. You'll be out in bed, you know. But he had talked to, he said, hey, I want to find out what, you know, if I can get your stat. And I'm like, to be truthful with you, I don't give two shits.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Out is out.
Oh, I'm out. I've been out. I'm out.
Right.
You know, I don't care if I'm bad, good, or what. It doesn't matter. And it's not like I'm going to run right back and say, hey, I'm not bad anymore. You know,
right.
I want my patch back. I want to be a Hells Angel again. It's like, no, I would never do that. So I told him, I said, hey, don't stick your neck on a chopping block for me. You know, and I mean, I respect the guy. I don't know him well.
Right.
But I spent a lot of time on the phone with him, and he would call me. You know, and I would be like, man, why is he telling me this stuff?
Yeah.
I'm not a member.
Right.
You know, why is he telling me stuff that is club business when I'm out and bad?
Maybe he didn't have anybody in the club.
You know, he's like, hey, B.A., man, he goes, everybody I talked to trying to bring the charter back was B.A. this, B.A., 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 kind of like with Pee Wee in Vegas, you know,
Yes.
Pee-wee, 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 same kind of thing. Because I went everywhere. I mean, I went everywhere I could go, being self-employed, having my own business, had good guys that worked for me. You know, and all the guys that worked for me at that time, like Quentin, the ones that you've had the privilege of meeting, he was with me. You know, he's been gone 20 years. He just came back from Texas. You know, he's one guy that I would allow to come back because he was a stand-up dude then.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I told him, I said, hey, you guys, your lives are really in jeopardy working for me.
Yeah.
You know, you're prone to have anything can happen.
Right.
So if you want to package stuff up right now and leave, and no hard feelings, and I don't have any ill feelings towards it at all. You know, if you stay, hey, thank you.
Yeah.
You know, you'll be rewarded for that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'll take care of you. You take care of me. I'll take care of you. So a couple guys, you know, they're like, well, we think we're going to go. And I'm like, hey, no problem.
Yeah.
I don't hold it against you. I mean, you know, you can go.
All the clubs.
Well, just because
it
was, you know, things start happening, you know, and then it just, you know, shit rolls downhill.
Yeah.
So Quentin, you know, he's like, I ain't going nowhere. I got your back, B.A., you know. And Eric as well, you know, my ex-brother-in-law, Eric. You know, he was always there, man. He was, you know, he was always behind. He always had my back.
Good man.
You know, yeah. I mean, we don't have, you know, too much of a relationship due to some other things that happened. Was married to my sister, you know, and being a friend, a boss, a brother-in-law, makes it really difficult on a relationship. You know what I mean? So, but Eric had my back. You know, he was one of the other guys. You know, and a couple other dudes. And of course, my dad. He was always, you know.
Yeah.
You know, always kind of pops. You know. But yeah, it was. You know. I never thought about it like, what's going to happen? You know, are they going to come? I mean, it never. Them thoughts never crossed my mind then. You know. No, this last year. You know, they've been making their way this way, and there's a couple guys here in town that used to come, and they always wanted to hang out and ask questions, and they were younger, and I never just blew anybody off. It wasn't me. I mean, I didn't tell them a lot, but I let them hang out a little bit. Well, this guy, he went to Milwaukee for an anniversary or something over there, and ended up meeting some of them other guys and befriended with them. And he told them, hey, we have a bike event here every July, which is coming up this next week, and there'll be a whole bunch of those guys here next week.
Yeah.
And I'm inviting you to come over, and I have property, and you guys can stay. And, you know, they turned Muskegon into their national run. Used to be Fowlerville every year in August. Now they moved it from Fowlerville to here. So every year now for the last 6-7 years, it's an other guys, their national ride. You know, and they're all over town. And I had 12 of them. There was 12 of them here last year.
Yeah.
And you know, my dad left. My buddy Steve left. Steve goes, "Hey, let me lock the door, B.A." And we all have them habits still.
Yeah.
I mean, just once you do, that's just how it is, you know. And I said, "Yeah, why don't you, man, go ahead and lock it, bro." And he locked it, and I go to the bathroom, and I hear a rumble, you know, and I'm washing my hands, and I open the door, and I come out, and as soon as I breach the doorway, I'm like, "Oh, whoa." I mean, I had both front windows are full of Charlies, you know, and I'm like, "Shit. Interesting. Door's locked. I wonder what they want." So I go in my office, you know, and grab my bang stick, put that in my pocket, and I come back out, and I'm like, they're looking in the windows, they're banging on the doors, and I'm like, "Shit, man. Well, I got to deal with it. I'm not gonna hide."
Right.
So I'm headed towards the door, and all of a sudden I see my dad coming. You know, well, he had left to go to work, and I'm thinking, what's he doing still here? Well, his wife had asked him to run to the gas station and grab a half a gallon of milk before he left, and he had a few minutes to spare. So he's at the gas station. He hears him, sees him pull in. So he's like, "Oh man!" So he comes, shoots down here, runs the milk in, and he comes out and said, "Hey, what do you guys want? You know, whose bike's that? Whose bike is that over there? You know, you know whose bike that is.
Yeah.
What are you doing here? What do you want? You know, well, what's that? You know," and they're pointing at it. My dad got a big 1% tattoo that he's had for, I don't know, I was a kid. You know, he told me, "I got that from somewhere in South Carolina, the Barbarians or something, you know, 1% club way back in the day. You know, he got it from another 1%er." And he goes, "Oh," he didn't say no more. Yeah. You know, and then my dad said, "Hey, man, there's nothing here for you guys. There's no reason for you to be here. There's no reason for you to stop. You should pretend we don't exist."
Yeah.
And then they left. Well, there was some people that had drove by, and they seen, you know, there was a large pack of outlaws here.
Right.
Knowing the history and everything,
Right.
they call 911. So now, as there's a big pack pulls out, and they take off out of here like a bat out of hell. Now here comes, you know, the police coming from that way like a bat out of hell. You know, and then knock a parking lot full of cop cars. And I'm like, "What the hell's going on? Who called the cops?" You know, and they're like, "Oh, everything all right?" I'm like, "Yeah, everything's fine." Well, we got a phone call. There was, you know, the outlaws were all over the place, and I'm like, "Yeah, they were here." Right. You know, and then one of the officers that knows me, he comes up and says, "Ken, you all right?" I said, "I'm fine." He's like, "What did they say?" I said, "I didn't talk to them. My dad did. I didn't have a chance to, and they were leaving." You know, so then he calls me later that night, and he said, "Hey, check this out." He says, 3 of those guys, maybe, I don't know if they're the same 3, but there was a large pack that had gotten pulled over north of here. They went to a guy's house up there and beat the guy up, and the rumor was, or the story that I got told by the cop, was that they had a bunch of Hells Angels support gear that they sold online, and then they had the guy's address that bought it, and they go, "You're a Hells Angels supporter, we're just going to show up at your house and stomp you because you're buying Hells Angels gear offline." But they're the ones that put it on there. Right. So they drove up there and they beat the guy up, and when they left, 3 of them got pulled over, and they had some guns and some dope on them, and they went to jail. I tried to follow it, but I ended up not being able to get all the information. The internet wasn't updated frequently enough, and I kind of forgot, and then before it was over with, they'd already been charged. But yeah, you know, the thing is that you look at the guys that you see now, and the old guys are going, you know, they're dying. Yes. You know, they don't, you know, when you live this lifestyle from the time you're 20, you don't live to be 70.
Yeah. Or they're being kicked out.
You know, your life is compromised and shortened by the way you live. Yeah. You know, so, you know, the old guys, you know, 60's old in the club, you know. Yeah. And so there's a new generation, you know, and the new generation now, you know, they just, you know, there's some There's some people out there they have no conscience whatsoever, none, zero. And they have all the wrong reasons to do what they're doing. It's not even about a motorcycle club or anything. It's all about who can have the most, teardrops tattooed on their face,
Right.
The more you fuck around, the more you're going to find out.